Test, okay.
This is the regular meeting of the Mobile City Council, Tuesday, January 31st. Please stand for our invocation, led by Father Fred Boney, St. Catherine of Siena Catholic Church, and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
A moment just to calm and still our minds. Father, we thank you for the gift of life. We thank you for, first of all of us just gathered here. Not just the action of gathering here, but we thank you for our very existence, our very being. We ask your blessing upon these council members and upon all gathered here as they lead our city towards greatness, Lord. And all those, our white, our black, our brown, our poor, our wealthy, everything in between, Lord. We ask your wisdom, your truth, your justice, and your mercy upon us. Through your Son, Jesus, in the unity of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. President Small.
Here.
Vice President Gregory.
Here.
Councilmember Penn.
Here.
Councilmember Carroll.
Here.
Councilmember Reynolds.
Here.
Councilmember Daves. Councilmember Jones.
Here.
Statement of rules.
And good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'd like to welcome everyone to our City Council meeting, January 31st, 2023. At this meeting, we do have rules. At this time, I ask if anyone has any type of electronic device or a cell phone, please, at this time, put on the off or the vibrator position. The off or the vibrator position. Any person that is desiring to address the council must sign in indicating the resolution, the ordinance, appeal, a public hearing agenda item before entering the meeting. When addressing the council, the speaker must state his or her name and address. Any person desiring to speak to the council on a non-agenda item must sign in to the city clerk office no later than 2:00 p.m. the Thursday prior to the council meeting. The subject that he or she wishes to address to the council must be identified and pertain to the city of Mobile business. And a person who has not given proper notice to the city clerk office and wishes to speak on a non-agenda item would not be allowed to address this council. Each speaker is allowed 3 minutes to address the council. A bell will sound to indicate the end of 2 minutes. 1 minute remains for summarizing. The second bell indicates the time has expired. When addressing the council, there is to be no personal address to any individual council members. All statements are to be made to the chair, who will recognize any council member who wishes to respond. To maintain decorum, there will be no undue applause and a public outcry allowed. Unfortunately, I have to say this for the next month, and I will be saying this for the next month. We ask that there would be no sidebar conversation out in the audience. When you're having your sidebar conversation, your conversation bounces up here, and it's hard for the counselors to understand and hear what's going on. If there are any sidebars conversation that's going on out in the audience, I will stop the meeting and wait till you finish your conversation. Madam City Clerk.
Approval of minutes of January 17th, both special meeting and regular meeting.
So moved. Second.
Been properly moved in second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Communications from the mayor.
Good morning. It's good to see everyone here this morning. Just a couple of announcements. One, wanted to apprise you of a meeting that we had this started Sunday after lunch with the mayors of the 10 largest cities, referred to as the Big Ten. We travel around the state every quarter, meeting in different cities, sharing information. While they were here, we had an opportunity for them to take a tour of the port. Many of them had not ever seen the port, and they now recognize the critical part that it plays in the economic development of the entire state. So it's always enjoyable to have them, to be with them because of the things that we can share with each other. Also, for those who've been downtown or maybe out on the South Alabama campus, you're starting to see a lot of football players, coaches, and team owners because of the Senior Bowl. It's a very exciting week. There's staff members here all week long, scouts for the NFL teams. And this has been going on for 70-plus years in the city of Mobile. The game this weekend is 1:30, Saturday at Hancock Whitney Stadium. And between now and then, you'll see a lot of activities surrounding the Senior Bowl. Also tomorrow, there's a group of congressmen and several members of the Alabama delegation that will gather in prayer for our nation ahead of the National Prayer Breakfast. They'll be meeting at the Bible Museum. I was reached out to by one of those members of Congress asking that citizens of Mobile please pray as we go into the National Prayer Breakfast in D.C. And I hope that you would, and what he asked was that you would join him in praying for a miracle of repentance and salvation to occur this Thursday that will shock and awaken our nation. So having said that, I want to pivot and read a proclamation, and I'd ask Dr. Kevin Michaels, the Mobile County Health Department officer, health officer, to please come to the podium. And if you have anybody in your team that's with you, if you would like for them to come down, they are also welcome to do so. And Dr. Michaels, when I finish reading the proclamation and present it to you, you're welcome to make whatever remarks that you would like, okay? So the proclamation reads, whereas February is American Heart Month, a time when all people are called to focus on their cardiovascular health, and whereas Mobile Infirmary Health Systems, Franklin Primary Health, and other partners play a vital role in addressing heart disease in the city of Mobile, and whereas the first Friday of American Heart Month, February 3rd, 2023, is National Wear Red Day, where residents wear the color red to raise awareness and support for the fight against heart disease in our community, and whereas we stress the importance of living a heart-healthy lifestyle and practicing self-care for ourselves and for our hearts. Now, therefore, I, William S. Stimson, the 108th Mayor of the City of Mobile, do hereby proclaim February 2023 as American Heart Month in the City of Mobile.
Again, thank you. This is a great opportunity to recognize how cardiovascular disease affects our community. Over 800,000 people will die a year from a cardiovascular disease. That includes strokes, coronary artery disease, peripheral vascular disease. So this is a really great way to bring attention and remember, leading a healthy lifestyle, discussing with your doctor, blood pressure, cholesterol, hemoglobin A1C for diabetes, and getting treatment for those things that you need. As well as if you have people in your family at risk, getting trained on CPR. So again, thank you.
That concludes my remarks, Mr. President.
All right, thank you. Madam Clerk.
Monthly finance reports.
Good morning, Mr. President.
Morning.
And members of the council. Actually, I'm going to report on December, which turned out to be a pretty healthy month. Sales tax for the month of December was $15,967,000, and it was a little bit better, not by a lot, but a little bit better than our budget. The interesting thing to see, though, is that it's only slightly higher than last year. So what we're really seeing now is revenues, particularly sales tax, so far this year have been running at about just slightly above maybe where they were last year, unlike what we had seen in previous years where we'd seen these big positive variances month to month. So it's really not unexpected. It was kind of put in the budget. And year to date, you know, our sales tax is $48.9 million, and our budget was $46.6. So we beat the budget, but actually we're still only just slightly ahead of where we were last year. So kind of an interesting phenomena, but I think we expected it. Total revenue for the year, for the month, $26 million. Our budget was 25.2, so just slightly better. And year-to-date for all taxes and revenue, $70.7 million versus a budget of 66.4. And again, you know, the scenario is pretty much the same. We're coming in just a little bit better than what we did last year on total revenues. Overall, our expenses year-to-date, we had a budget of spend $64.25 million, and we ended up spending $48.8, so we had about a $15 million variance. I guess two things. We're spending more than we did last year, which is what was in the budget, but right now we're spending less than what we did budget. So I think that was really the reason for the positive variance, which ended up leaving us with a surplus addition this month of $7.8 million. And that takes us up to 137 less the $50 million that we usually set aside for emergencies for the year. In general, you know, GDP, the economy is kind of interesting to watch. Growth was 2.17 in December versus the year, which was, versus 6.9% in 2021. Interest rates added another 0.5%. We're about 4.25 to 4.5, depending upon the rates. Expect another increase in February, but probably not more than 50 basis points or 0.5%. Rates are still high compared to what they've been over the last several years. Inflation has been dropping. I can remember talking with you all back in the summer, and we were talking about 10, 11%, something like that. It's down to 6.8 in December, which is down from 7.1 in November. Energy's still kind of high, but it's also down a lot. Energy was 7.3 in December versus 13.1% in November. Mortgage rates, though, on the other hand, are up 6.9% for 30 years. But that is down slightly from October, but I think that's just a swing in the long-term Fed funds rate that's out there right now. And then finally, the stock market. Actually, it's been kind of steady over the last couple of months, but that remains to be seen what will happen for the balance of the year. So that's my report on the city's finances for the month of December. Any questions?
Council, Mr. Daves.
Thank you for that report. Going back to the sales tax revenue, the inference I get is that our sales tax revenues are plateauing somewhat, and I guess that is the result of two things. One being a slowing of the economy, and the other being increased online sales. Is that right?
What was the second?
Increased online sales.
I think that's part of it. We didn't really see the SSUT go up much more than just a small amount like it does every month. I think the bigger impact between this year and last year, and particularly the year before, is the funds that came from the federal government down to the cities and also to individuals. You know, it took a while for people to spend it. I think pretty much we've worked our way through that, and we're not seeing that this year. And also, I think there's evidence that the economy is slowing a little bit as well. And there's an expectation that that might continue through the first half of this year. We'll wait and see.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Any other councilors?
Yeah, Mr. President.
Yeah, Mr. Jones.
Yeah, so can you go back our anticipated expenditures to what they actually were? Did you say we were 15 million below what we had anticipated to spend?
We're about close to about 15
Is most of that still coming in on salaries?
million. No, I
Payroll?
think that's pretty much across the board.
Across the
Our
board?
spending, yeah, in general.
What's
salaries, I would
what's
say, is-
driving that? I mean, that's a pretty big number. Are we not able to execute contracts? Is it a contractual thing? Did we not have the expenditures we anticipated by project?
Well, to be honest with you, that's something I want to look into. And, we got our numbers last week, and so I haven't really had a chance to do that. But I think each department's going to be a little bit different. I think we'll have some of the same reasons we've had in the past. Some of it is employment. That's usually one of the big factors. I think just strategic decisions made at certain departments, and maybe not to do certain things right now, or maybe we just haven't positioned ourselves for it. We were running pretty much like this early last year as well, and before the end of the year, we had pretty much made a big catch-up. We still came in a little bit under budget last year, but and I suspect that as the year progresses and we get into the spring, and we'll start to see more spending from these departments.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it.
Mr. President,
Mr. Penn.
thank you, Bob, for the report. Based on what you said, I'm just make sure with the 50 million that we have for the reserve for, I guess, those 2 months.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then that will leave us about $77 million.
That will leave us about 87 million.
87. Okay,
Yeah.
so 87 in the surplus. Is that the largest we been like kind of in the past?
No, last year we were pretty high in the first couple of months, and then we started making some moves, for the airport, for example, and others. But that's still one of our better numbers to start off the year with. I'm really thinking that the real interesting month is going to be January. That's a big revenue month for us. Typically, we've got all the business license revenue coming in, most of it, and others. So I think next month when we sit up here and talk about it, you'll see some interesting numbers compared to what we've seen so far. But all in all, I'll tell you the truth, I was a negative naysayer when we put the budget together, and in terms of I wanted to be real careful, and I think that sales taxes, I would say, pretty happy with the tax revenue that's come in so far this year.
Mr. President?
Mr. Carroll.
Yeah, quickly. I'm thinking back to the budget process. During the budget process, I don't remember a line item that said surplus. Can you tell me where these numbers were placed during the budget time? Because some of this money is carried forward from the previous year budget. So can you tell me what line items this money was put into?
The money doesn't go in anywhere. The money is not, the budget is what we're going to spend.
Right.
The budget is just the difference between our the surplus is the difference between our assets and liabilities on the balance sheet.
Yeah, but I don't think in municipal accounting, and I may be wrong, that I think we have to show a balanced budget. So what we're calling surplus will be placed in various line items or would be attached to various departments.
Well, what you'll see is anyone who doesn't spend what they budgeted will show up as a surplus by a line item.
So
if you go through every line item within every budget, you'll see what has spent more, what has spent less, and if we've spent less, that will all be added up at the end of the budget, and that will go into the surplus.
So this 137 million less what we have for reserve, the 87 million would show up as surplus in various departments throughout the city.
In various departments, well, it will show underspending or higher taxes in various departments.
So in essence, these departments can spend this money.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we keep calling it a surplus, but I mean, in my mind, in municipal, government, there's no such thing as a surplus. It's only unbudgeted money if there's a surplus. So it is attached to the budget in some form or.
Well, we do a financial statement every month that measures the position of the city at the end of the month. And at the end of that month, we do an accounting, and whatever is different between the revenue forecast and the revenue actual and the expenditures actual and the expenditures plan leads to either a surplus or it leads to a deficit. And right now, we're not spending as much as we have in our budget.
Mr. President.
Yes.
I think for clarification, there exists, so our budget, our annual general fund budget is an operational fund, and so it is budgeted expenditures based on projected revenues. It does not include a line item for surplus, but when we outperform the budget or we spend less than what was budgeted for each department, it creates a surplus. So it's the origin of the surplus. The surplus is actually disclosed with the budget, not as a line item, but it's in the report itself of what the unencumbered balance of the surplus is.
Thank you for that explanation. In my mind, when we choose to donate money to maybe the airport or to any other organization that we choose, or I should say that the administration brings to us to choose, because we haven't been choosing, that we know where that money's coming from, and we can identify which line items within the budget that's coming from. Right now, if what you just told me is correct, then if we give $30 million to someone, then various line items would see a deduction over the overall budget.
We wouldn't do it that way. We would take the surplus that had been earned through the previous months, which is set aside in a separate account, and we would make a decision to take so much of that and put it into the
so that surplus
whatever
is,
we choose to do. Yeah.
So that surplus is coming from various line items every month.
It's coming from, yeah, the difference between the actual and the plan every month, yeah. And every month it'll be a little bit different. But then once the month's over and you have an accounting for it, you have that surplus that you're going into the next month with.
So if we're moving it and putting it into account, does it not require a budget amendment to move it and put it into another account?
No, it does not. Let me. So, Mr. President, let me
hold on, Mr. Woods. So, now, in the beginning of the meeting, I asked if they're going to be in a sidebar conversation. But I'm going to stop this meeting. If you need sidebar conversation, please step outside. Sorry, Mr. Woods.
Oh, thank you, Mr. President. So what what Mr. Holt is saying, I think we're conflating two different conversations. What is left over from month to month ends up as surplus, but it doesn't actually travel over into the larger pot that we refer to, say, for instance, the $30 million into the end of the year. I think Mr. Carroll's asking a valid question, and Mr. Holt's answering his question, but they're two different conversations, at least as far as the state law is concerned and how we deal with our budget. Remember, our budget by state law is based on projections. And so if those funds are not expended, then they roll over into the surplus, which is that $70+ million, I think, that Mr. Penn was asking about, and that's where the $30 million came from. So when we make an expenditure, say, for instance, the $30 million to the airport, if you remember, the previous council acted on that item and pushed it over into capital. And then if we're dealing with, that came from surplus. And then you all, this council, voted on it going forward. Anytime that we spend from the surplus, the larger pot, there are two things that have to happen. One is there has to be an actual transfer, a special allocation, and specifically laid out in the statute. And then two, Mr. Holt has to certify that allocation. So we do that on a regular basis whenever we're spending from surplus, and there are two ways that he does that. One is either through the written letter, or two is our normal budgeting process. So I understand what's getting asked, but there are two different conversations happening.
Again, the question is simple. Where do I identify it in the budget?
The simple answer is, Mr. President, is you wouldn't, because we put it in the report surplus doesn't get designated because it's not part of the projection for income. Right.
At the next finance committee meeting, I'm gonna note this, but there's a reason why I'm asking.
Yeah.
All right, and I think that there's a lot of people in District 2, and there are a lot of areas in District 2 that need a lot of money. I mean, I've got the bottom, I've got the campground, I've got properties that are run down, I've got sidewalks that need help. I mean, there's a lot of help that's needed. But if we're carrying this kind of balance, I think that the people should feel some of this money sometime. And we need to get it to where the people are feeling some of it. So I'm asking. Thank you.
I'll be happy to go through it with you anytime, one-on-one, and with the Finance Committee, and walk through it with you.
I mean, we're looking to add additional people to the city, but we have people in the city that also have needs. And if we have this kind of money and we're looking for additional funding and we have a surplus that we're calling a surplus, then I think some people that really need it need to feel it. Thank you. Really appreciate you as always, man. Thank you so much.
I just have a quick question. In listening to Mr. Woods and Mr. Holt and Councilman Carroll, it would seem like during the year, the surplus is fluctuating. And we don't really know the year-end balance until the year-end, or how am I?
That's exactly right, because in the month of February, for instance,
we may have this amount.
We may lose $5 million, and then the surplus will drop by $5 million.
Right, because next month or the month after that, we may have an emergency or some sort of expenditure, and so the surplus amount would change, but it's fluctuating throughout the year until the end of the budget year, and then it would go into capital, whatever's left over minus what we have to keep by law, correct? Am I sort of on the right track?
What's not been included in the general fund budget then becomes that unencumbered surplus.
Right. But during the year, there would be different amounts of surplus
correct.
that would be
we
available to spend by department, obviously.
And you know, this is all pretty much spelled out in the online. You know, we publish the statements online, and you can see where the surplus comes from.
Mr. President,
Mr. Penn?
to Councilwoman Gregory point, if that was to happen, if we was to lose, just say February was a negative, would that come out the reserve of the 50 million? Or
It'll come out of
out that reserve part.
Whatever we've made positive over the last 4 months. Say over the last 4 months we've made $5 million a year better than what we planned. We'd have maybe a $20 million budget. And if we lost $10 million in February for whatever reason, then at the end of February, then we would be back down to 10.
I guess the reason why I asked that is because that we're still in great position financially.
Yeah,
because we already put $50 million away for those moments like that.
Yeah,
and we still have $87 million left. So I would just gain clarity.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Actually, you know, our surplus is running pretty much around the same level as it did last year at this time. So, you know, we spent a lot of money last year, and we dropped it down from where it was, and now we're putting more in. And if we spend another chunk on some special project, we'll bring it back down if it comes out of the surplus.
Hello, Mr. Reynolds, Mr. Days, and then Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Mr. Holt. I think, I think we get into trouble when we start looking at the balance sheet at a particular point in time, and we need to look at it from a historical and long-term perspective. And it wasn't that long ago when the city didn't have any reserve whatsoever. As a matter of fact, had a negative balance, a negative unassigned balance in the reserve. And the reserve we have now has been built up carefully over the last 10 years. And we don't want to get to the point where that reserve, and it's a large reserve, where that reserve is burning the hole in everybody's pockets, waiting to be spent. Because we don't know what's in front of us. We don't know what demands are going to be made on that reserve in front of us. We've gone through a number of years where the city of Mobile has done well in terms of its revenues, and in some cases, better than many other cities in the country. Just because that's been the case in the past doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the case in the future. And we would hate through some disaster or some downturn in the economy to have to take serious steps. We don't want to get back into the position we were 10 years ago. We have a lot of demands that we have anyway, I'm not going to get into all the demands that we might place on that reserve. I'm just cautioning us that you can't look at this reserve or the balance sheet in particular at any one point in time. You have to keep a historical perspective, and we need to keep our powder dry because we don't know what's in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Mr. President,
Yes.
some of the conversation that seems to us implying that the city is hoarding money and not spending it in a fashion that would be spread all over the city. It's with a tremendous forethought that we've been building this surplus. We have somewhere between $300 and $400 million of unfunded projects, not knowing where the money is going to come from to do those projects. And so I can't predict today exactly how that $87 million will be spent, but the city council will approve every single penny that is spent. And so please, from the citizen standpoint, know that if we do not have a surplus, then a lot of these projects that you anticipate us building, they will not be built. And by having a surplus, when the credit agencies look at us, they see that the city is being financially managed as it should be, and that we have strength because of that surplus, that we can weather a downturn in the economy without having to be disruptive and laying people off and other things, and quit providing services that we intend to provide. So please be thoughtful about how you present the situation that we've got a bunch of money and it's like it's just going to sit there and we're trying to hoard it, because we're not. We're just waiting for the right time to explain the projects and how much money should be, in our opinion, how much money should be spent toward those projects. But again, the city council, and y'all recognize this, y'all will approve every single penny of it.
Mr. President.
Mr. Carroll.
Mr. President,
I'm sorry. Mr. Reynolds, then Mr. Carroll. I'm sorry, Mr. Reynolds.
I'm never going to advocate for frivolous spending just to spend it because the money's there.
Mr. Reynolds, hold on for 1 second. Go ahead, Mr. Reynolds.
All right. I'm not going to advocate for that. And I think we've sort of planned to put money in the surplus every month in our budget. But I think we can probably all agree that rolling $15 million is probably a little much for the month of January, when our revenue was generally flat, according to budget, in December. So it seems like there may be a little bit of a shortcoming in getting the money out the door for this particular month. So I want to raise the attention to that. And I'm not saying let's just spend it because we got it. We should be spending it in the right way. But rolling $15 million means we probably fell short somewhere along the way because we didn't meet our budget, and it's tax dollars. So we probably should be getting it out the door a little bit better from an operational standpoint, in my mind.
Mr. Carroll.
Well, thank you, Mr. Reynolds, because that was point number one. Point number two is, and not even a point, but I remember watching the city's website before I came back to the council. And on the city's website, there was a rebuild, mobiled, and it had, I can't even remember, $350 million in projects that were not inclusive of the projects that we are doing today. It encompassed a lot of the projects that I'm talking about now that, going back over 12 years, we still haven't addressed fully. And I'm really concerned. I went looking for that website the other day. It's been taken down. It's no longer in existence out there. where the administration and everybody else used to post those projects of what we needed to do for corrective actions within the city, whether it was tree pruning, street repairs, or things that needed to happen in various districts. And I know that over that time, we haven't spent $250 million. The mayor makes a valid point there. But still yet, most of that $250 million is inner city and downtown, and still yet we have some monies that we can use. And like Mr. Reynolds said, that $15 million carryover really got my attention from December to January, when we have neighborhoods that are in dire need of the help from the city. Thank you. Look, and again, I really appreciate you. You know I do. We talk about this all the time, but that $15 million says a lot to me, as Mr. Reynolds just said, and what we could have done and what we still have to do. And I really appreciate you, and thanks for all you do.
Mr. President.
Yeah, Mr. Jones.
There's a danger that we see year over year when we have an inability to spend anticipated expenditures, especially when they revolve around public works, public services. Because if we don't get those things done, those things don't disappear, and they just continue to add up. And it puts additional pressure on the system and the people within that system. And then that money carries over to the end of the year, and we move that money into revenue, and those funds that we have set aside to fix the drains, to fix the culverts, to do the mowing, to do all this other stuff, that, you know, the sidewalk repair, the inlet repair, the tree cutting, the stump removals, those funds never get allocated. And that work just continues to pile up. And I see that in my district as much as any other district. And I think we have a labor issue. I think we have a contracting issue. And it's something that I think we need to put a full court press on and figure this out. I mean, we've seen it since I've been on the city council, and we haven't found a way to fix this. And if we don't find a way to fix this, we're not going to fix the problem. So this it's not an easy fix, but I think we need to come together collectively, have an open discussion, communicate what the problems are, and put our heads together. There's a lot of smart people in the city, that I know, and I'm not the smartest of them. But I think when we get smart minds alike in the same room and we listen to ideas and figure out a solution, that we can move the city forward. And a lot of the concerns that we've heard this morning would be addressed. Thank you.
And other council members.
So, Mr. President, I do want to say, in the vein that three council members just mentioned about moving things faster, I am going to send Mr. Linder a contracting ordinance, some tweaks based on some things that you all said, some things that we've been thinking about too, to get things out of the door faster. I know we've been having that conversation for a while, but we'll send that around so it can be circulated, so you all can have a look at it before it hits the agenda, so those who want to can choose to co-sponsor it or not, or make changes if necessary.
I will sponsor that.
What's Mr. President?
Mr. Moran.
This ordinance that you're discussing, and just generally, what does it help with?
So it helps with two different things. One is moving those smaller items faster. Right now, we're dealing with, things sit for a couple of weeks, but you all would be able to see them, not only your CIP items, but the items in purchasing. Because I think to an extent that you all mentioned, some things don't move out of the doors fast. You're correct. That's not all of the problem, but that would help with part of it.
I
then,
just want to interrupt you
sure,
because that was the first point. Are you suggesting that the 2 weeks an item is on the agenda is what's stymieing some of this?
No, that's not what I'm suggesting. What I'm saying is it is a much longer process. What I'm asking is twofold. One, that you all still see it, but the smaller items move through a lot faster. Okay, it's the smaller items, not the larger items that sit here. The fact that they have to hit the agenda when they didn't used to, it makes a difference. You'll see it when we bring it through. And then the other part is, and I think Mr. Jones has asked this question, the larger items almost having a listing that you use for professional services up to a certain amount, whatever amount you all are comfortable with. We have a suggested amount, but to see if those items could move just a little bit faster, and Colonel DeLapp can elaborate on it. We talked about this before in pre-council some time ago.
Yeah, so, everything has to be staffed. So every contract we do, so to Mr. Jones's point, there's a lot of work, and we push out a lot of work, but it all has to go through, there's a few choke points: procurement, legal, they have to be reviewed.
Engineering.
But engineering generates contracts for legal review. They have to review those. That takes time to review those diligently. If there's errors, it has to come back and then be done again. So pushing those out sometimes takes longer than it should, because we got to make sure all of our I's are dotted and T's are crossed. In certain instances, the council may be comfortable with saying, we don't need you to bring every single one of these things. Maybe we raise a threshold on certain professional services contracts that could be a higher dollar threshold that says, we're comfortable knowing that you're going to do that well up to a certain dollar threshold, and it doesn't need to come to us. So you give us the ability to push that through without having to add another 2 weeks or more through this process. But there's multiple layers in which we can expedite it. But Ricardo Woods brought up that some of it's also internal, and we need some additional support. We are looking, to Mr. Jones's point, at hiring construction contract administrators too. We have those out currently that would help just standardize and expedite those contracts, getting them into legal. So when legal gets them, they're standard and uniform, not coming 6 different ways or 20 different ways from 20 different project managers, but from a contracting team. We don't have that in the city, in the public works world today. That will also help. So there's many things we're looking at to try and expedite and help it. And last thing I'll say is to Councilman or to Bob's point is, because it's not spent today and it shows that we're not spending to the threshold we expected, we're below the amount. That doesn't roll over every month to the surplus. At the end of the year, it does if it's truly not there. But it just means that we may not have pushed it out the door because of the things I just talked about quick enough. But we will go out. It will go out the door, and when it does, it'll go out, and that curve will catch back up. But typically, in the last few years, we've settled just a little below the glide path and spent less than we anticipated. But that's the nature of it. So hopefully that answers that. But we're making headway to try and get these contracts out. But if you look at the agenda, there's probably 15 items that were added just in Public Works this week that you're approving or you're going to vote on today. Every week there's another 10 or 15. So they're going out the door. There's a lot of them, and every one of those requires a legal review.
Right. So thank you for that, Mr. DeLapp and Mr. Woods. I just don't want this conversation to be in such a way that it's the 2-week delay of the city council, which is an opportunity for the public to see it all and us to consider it all as being sort of the bottleneck. So this ordinance, I look forward to reading it and looking at it, and if it's reasonable and makes sense, I can possibly get on board with it. But I think maybe this month in particular, I don't know that was the case. That a 2 weeks of us expediting some item on the agenda would have necessarily made up this $15 million variance. Maybe there seems like there maybe was something else going on this month, and maybe it was those other bottlenecks, engineering or legal or procurement or whatever else it was. But I would say before we start saying let's pass an ordinance to go around or sidestep our process, which is firmly established and has been for years, maybe there's an opportunity to look internally to say, well, how can we speed this up? Where are our shortcomings? Where are the true bottlenecks? And address those issues before we start changing our rules. That's it, Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Ms. Carroll.
Permission to mount this horse one last time before we put it to bed. One last point, and last week I've been going over the next year's capital expenditures coming from District 2. And what really got me again, which has me thinking and going through all of this, is that I'm being told that I've got to spend $3 million on a fire station out of District 2 CIP that is meant to go directly, or hopefully meant to directly affect the people that are living in my district. But yet I'm being told, not asked, to spend $3 million, which is the total amount of that capital CIP, when we have what we're saying is a surplus that could be used on a facility that is city capital, not district capital, even though it's in my district. So that and a few other things like that have really gotten my eyes up, or should I say, got the hair on the back of my neck up, sort of like when a dog starts barking. But it's really got my attention right now. So when we talk about these things, those are the things that come to mind, because that $3 million could directly impact the lives of people when we have what we're calling a surplus that we could be using that money from. Thank you again, and again, I really appreciate what you do.
Mr. President,
Ms. Gregory.
even though Councilman Carroll has put the horse back in the barn, just one more thing. Part of the conversation and the money and the committed funds, I think still goes to the point that we're having trouble.
Ms. Gregory. Now, in the beginning of this meeting, I asked to hold down the sidebar conversations, and we constantly having someone laughing in the audience. This is a professional meeting. This is not no off-the-street meeting. I'm going to ask one more time. Please, if you had to have sidebar conversation, laughing, please step outside this meeting. Sorry, Ms. Gregory.
At any rate, I know we're still having trouble finding companies to do work, materials, all of those sorts of things, whether it's a big project or even a little project, whether it's drainage or speed bumps. I've had speed bumps on my CIP list for 2 years now. Can't find a company to even bid on doing the work. So we're finding a lot of that. So some of that is the reason why we've got these funds still out there. We can't get the work out the door. So hopefully things will change from the bigger projects like drainage to the work I've been waiting on at Langen Park to, the small things. But we're all facing these same sorts of problems with funding left over, not being spent, taking a long time to get the projects out the door, and, it's frustrating for everybody. So I think that's just part of what we've been talking about, just another component. But I appreciate, Bob, you're explaining all of this and the work that you're doing. Thank you.
Madam Clerk.
Adoption of the agenda.
Second.
Been properly moved and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Agenda is adopted.
We have a request for a waiver of the noise ordinance on March the 4th, Westbury Drive, February 3rd on Moffett Road, February 19th on Berkeley Avenue, February 19th on Dolphin Street, and April 22nd in Cooper Riverside Park, and April the 8th in Melo Lavana Park.
So moved.
Been properly moved and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Item passes.
Public hearings. Today is the public hearing to declare the structures at 1056 Etta Avenue and 1408 Linwood Drive public nuisances and ordering them demolished.
This opens up the public hearing for the said items that was mentioned. If anyone would like to come down to address the council on these items, please come down to the podium and state your name and your address at this time. Is anyone present? If not, the public hearings are closed.
Presentation of petitions and other communications to the council. Harry Tieford.
Happy Senior Bowl Day. It's bad on the hair, though, isn't it, in Mobile? Mr. President and members of the council, Mr. Mayor, my presentation is one not of adversarial but of information that I presented. I'd like to present on behalf of some individuals that we're bringing to Mobile called the Parrot Heads. And with me
Well, at this time, please give us your name and your address.
Harry Tieford, 7 North Bayou Street.
All right, thank you.
Also Billy Ray Flynn, Coin DeBone, and a couple of other radio names. With me is Dale Clemens from Louisville, Kentucky, one of our directors, and also from Robertsdale, Alabama, one of our directors and a veteran of the Iraq War, who are on the ground to visit Mississippi Gulf Coast venues, the Gulf Shores venues, and here in Mobile. But my observations are presented that some issues have been raised about safety issues in Mobile for our parrot heads when they arrive. And long ago, I did a thesis at the University of Mobile, once called Mobile College, called The Difference Between Quantitative and Qualitative Growth. And I presented this before. It's been before you, and the mayor and I are going to be discussing it later, that I found that since I was dropped here in Mobile, Alabama from the Florida Keys after 20 years, and down there I tested my hypothesis of putting a toll booth at the entrance of US 1 and charging $5 to guarantee qualitative growth by the money to provide that qualitative growth and security. And had the point made in all the municipalities in that county, and it still is every year, debated every year. That has not passed yet because that is quite a far-fetched idea of charging everybody on a federal highway to get in somewhere. But that hypothesis works in different locations and possibly could work here if it were considered in the right form. Now, after being dropped into 2023 Mobile, Alabama, I'm responsible for bringing these parrot heads down here. And after seeing some of the things that's happened in Memphis and Detroit and other areas, and now down New Year's Eve in Mobile, Alabama, I'm having to explain to some of these sweet and low stealers. And I took all the ones at Spotted T. That's our age group. That's what they called us in Key West, and that's the reason we're not here. And that gentleman tried to book a room here to come visit me for a meeting here for our company, and the prices of the hotels were tripled. Interesting. The solution, though, I find that quantitative growth. See what I mean? Qualitative growth, on the other hand, can be done in certain instances so that that person right there who used his Gold Card and got his $400 room at the Holiday Inn, I hope my parrot heads, when they come here, don't expect that. Of course, there are many benefits of quality growth, and there are many other cities to
Mr.
emulate.
T4.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any questions or comments from the council?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. T4.
Valinia Green.
Good morning. Good morning, Mayor, Chief Barber, Mayor, staff, and council. I come here today to speak to your heart.
Ms. Green, yeah, you got to address me, but first give us your name and your address, but address me.
My address changed functionally because I'm homeless, so I don't really know what the right address to give you.
Just give us your full name, but
Okay,
address me.
Brina Green. Many of you know me. I have come to you today to speak to your heart for a women's transitional homeless shelter for working homeless women. I too have been homeless due to the fact of blowing the whistle on Marigold Apartments. They evicted me during the holidays, and I have no place to stay. I ran a pantry in District 7 during the month of November and December, continued to work and kept my doors open. Fed on Christmas Day, the poor, fed Thanksgiving Day, and had to pick my stuff up on the day after Thanksgiving. I pray today for your heart to work with me to do a transitional home for homeless women that work. Sometimes we think homeless or the woman walking down the street on Spring Hill Avenue asking you for your loose change, or the woman at the gas station that's hooked on drugs that don't work. But I got placed in the extended stay due to COVID while I was homeless, and there was many women there that worked that were homeless. I plead with you today. I do know the mayor to be a Christian man. He's ministered with me with the homeless before when I was under the direction of Canopy of Prayer. I pray, and I've worked with Chief Barber before, coming from the McGill background. I do know you to be kind because y'all have helped me with people. And the mayor prayed for me while I ministered to the homeless one time in the square. So I ask you today, don't look at the homeless women and think that they're all just not working. Some of them look like me. I come here with humility for you today to take the mask off, to tell you that they can look like me, and they are me. I speak to you today on behalf of them. I've met a lot that have been in relationships just to have somewhere nice to lay their head, just somewhere clean to lay their head, and being abused. I ask you today for your help. Work with me. Work with me. But let me guide you through some things where we get to the people that need. Don't leave the women out there. Please. My family, my children. I lost my children. And my mother, they told me to shut the pantry down and stop preaching. And I told them, I said, no, I want to be with the believers and the followers of Jesus, and I'm going to be. My bishop is here today. He didn't even know I was homeless. I was too ashamed to tell it. So please, in the name of Jesus, I ask you for your help today.
Thank you,
In
Ms.
the name
Green.
of Jesus.
Mr. President,
Yeah, Mr. Chief Barber.
Keisha's going to step out with Ms. Green and provide her some contact information with Housing First so that we can give her some assistance.
Thank you.
Sabrina Mass.
Good morning, Mayor's Administration, City Council, Ms. Lambert and staff. Sabrina Mast, 1050 Belvedere Circle West. Excuse me, I was on the agenda to speak for annexation, but I would like to reserve and delay that today for another time. I just want to say today, if I may, I would like to say, I come humbly to and compassionately to pray for Tyree Nichols.
Well, hold up.
Yes, sir.
Stop for minutes. Ms. Bass.
I'm going to sit down.
Yeah, Ms. Mass, I stopped your minutes. You signed up to sign up. You
I
signed
just
up
said
to,
I reserve my right, and I say
You
I just
cannot-
want
you
to speak.
can't do that.
I want to pray for Tyree Nichols,
That's-
and
Ms.
thank you,
Mass.
Director Batiste, for keeping our city.
Ms. Mass.
And we should come unity
Ms.
and
Mass.
openness. And
Ms.
that's what I
Mass.
have to say. I'm gone.
We have council
I
rules, Ms.
understand the
Mass.
rules.
But you
I've
signed
been
up
here
about
19 years.
annexation.
I said I would like to pray for Tyree Nichols in humbleness and his family, and thank our city leader for keeping us safe in this city. And I'm gone, Director Batiste.
Madam Clerk.
Jane Ninstyle, still.
Good morning, City Council and Mayor.
Morning.
Thank you so
Morning.
much for having us. I'm Jane Bartlett Pappas with the Drug Education Council, 219 Grand Boulevard. I am joined here with 4 of our 20 Mobile City County Youth Council members. These are some incredible students. I wanted to make a few family connections really quick because we've got some really awesome student leaders here. We've got Morgan, who is Councilman Carroll's daughter. We've got Kirsten, who is former City Councilman Thomas Sullivan's granddaughter. Presley, who's the daughter of Mobile County, the Executive Director of Mobile County's EMS services. And Brooklyn has a Boys and Girls Club connection. She was second place for the Youth of the Year. So these are just 4 of our 20 awesome students. So I kind of wanted to give them a shout out for the awesome stuff that they are doing. But we are here today to talk to you about our teen workshop that we had on January 19th at Gulf Quest Maritime Museum. So at this time, I'm going to let the students tell you a little bit more about that.
Good morning. My name is Presley Turner, and I was appointed by Commissioner Dewitt. Every high school in Mobile and Baldwin County is invited to bring 8 students to participate in this one-day event, TDA as we call it. This year, our focus was on the dangers of vaping and other drug use, and we had 19 schools registered and more than 150 student participants, which I think is a great turnout.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Morgan, and I was appointed by Councilman Carroll. We had many wonderful speakers join us this year to teach our peers about the importance of making healthy choices. Representative Barbara Drummond gave an encouraging and hopeful welcome.
Good morning. My name is Brooklyn. I was appointed by County Commissioner Hudson. Dr. Jack Shelby Tremblay, Chair of Department of Psychology at the University of South Alabama, started off the day with a presentation about how drugs affect our brain and can lead to addiction. He even brought us real brains for us to see and touch. We then had an interactive panel discussion which included local physicians, including pulmonologist Dr. Karen Fagan, pediatrician Dr. Melody Petty, as well as former Mobile County District Attorney Ashley Rich. This discussion led to great conversation between these community leaders and students, which was vital to the next part of the program when the students gather with their group and develop a prevention plan to implement when they return to their school campus.
Good morning. My name is Kirsten Cunningham, and I was appointed I'm a Davidson ambassador. This event empowers students to take an active role in keeping their school campus and community alcohol and drug abuse free, and we look forward to planning it again next year. Thank you for your constant support and encouragement.
And we've got these little flyers to show y'all pictures from the workshop.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you for everything you do.
Mr. President?
Yeah, Mr. Jones.
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you all for coming down and for what you're doing in your high schools. We just saw a story this past week where a student from Mary Montgomery was taken to the hospital with lace drugs that they got online. So what y'all do is extremely important, having the courage to speak out in your high schools against having drugs, which are going to become even more problematic as we move forward. So thank y'all for that.
These students have done a tremendous job in their schools, but also in the community. So thank y'all for everything.
Mr. President.
Yeah, Mr. Carroll.
They did have a wonderful day. About midway through the morning, I get this text, and it said, I got to touch a brain. And it feels like clay. And I'm like, a brain? Where? Touch a brain where? So just to note that the interactive involvement with the group and going through the process was probably more educational by experience than anything they could probably ever learn in the classroom. I encourage anyone and everyone and all of you in the city to please take part in everything that the city has to offer in all of our things, because for people like me, learning by doing is probably more precious than anything that I could ever read. So great job to you guys, and hopefully we can continue to make strides on everything that we're trying to do in the city.
Mr. President?
Ms. Gregory.
I do want to thank you all for what you do. Congratulations. And I love all of the family ties. And because you're here, Morgan, I do have to embarrass you just a little bit, because a long time ago when Morgan was born, William and I were on the city council, hadn't been on there long, and I just remember seeing Morgan grow up and her running around City Hall and even at football games and things. It was great to see all of you youngsters in high school and participating in this type of program, and just good to see everybody here. And sorry, Morgan, just had to, you know how adults do. We have to embarrass you a little bit and talk about how we knew you when you were this high.
Mr. President.
Mr. Penn.
Jen, I also want to thank you, Mobile leadership classmate. Thank you for your service. Thank you to the young people that's here. Many times we hear all these different type of stories or bad things about young people are doing in the community. This what need to be on the news. We need to celebrate all the different things that you're doing, and thank you so much for serving our community.
Anyone else? Madam Clerk?
Reggie Hill.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. Excuse me. And as I began, it is such a delight to see all of these younger people in here today. I'm not sure if you all will continue your careers into public service, but we need you. Normally, success for the future has only youth that are here throughout the meeting. So this is really good to see all of you here today. So keep doing whatever it is that you're doing. To the citizens and stakeholders of Mobile, good morning, Reggie Hill, 1007 Center Street. Arise today to continue our conversation regarding the Civic Center, annexation, and public safety. Let's get the easy piece out of the way, the annexation component. We just heard all this talk today about us having lack of funding. So how can we, again, extend our geographical setting within the city of Mobile, and we don't have the resources to take care of the backlog of needs in districts 1, 2, and 3 particularly. This has been stated week after week after week. There's so many things that are out of whack here already. We don't have the money to extend our services. So let's just consider that. And again, as mentioned last week, 1980, we had a smaller geographical setting, but 200,000 people here. So maybe we can look at growing from within. All right, let's move to the Civic Center. Now, I don't know why everything is taken so personal in here. That distorts us from getting done the business of the city. We've got to stop taking things personal. I say that because last week somebody responded to something that I shared, and the question has still not been answered. Now, is it true? We have a leasing agreement now with a company that is going to be using real estate, but that we will not know what they do in their contracts beyond? Now, hopefully, Director DeLapp can answer this for us, but from what I heard from last pre-meeting, it's saying we're going to allow them to have the property now. We're leasing this now, but what they do in development, we will have no insight on their contracts? So will someone please clear that up? Because that is not fair to the people, and I don't think it's a good use of the taxpayer resources. Something that was not able to be touched on last week, dealing with the public safety. We don't have an issue with solving crime in the city of Mobile. There is no issue with solving crime in the city of Mobile. Our concern is preventing crime. Our concern is being proactive. Our concern is actually putting resources in place to be the ones at the forefront to stop these matters before they even take place. That's what we're not doing properly. And we talking about the use of funds and all this stuff. We all spent $20,000 on moon pies and trinkets 2 weeks ago. What? We're going to have to utilize our ARP resources. We have not heard a report on how we're going to do that yet. We had that delayed last time as well. We need an increase in our performance contracts for data-proven initiatives. There is nothing now to evaluate what we spend our performance contracts money on right now. So we're just giving money away annually with no report of what's going on. And wonder why these things are happening in the street. We have one of the biggest festivals coming around very shortly, this week. Now, instead of us coming in here blaming each other, getting mad about what's taking place and saying how somebody's not stepping up, let's start releasing the funds to the organizations that actually know how and what to do. And we have several examples sitting in here today. So again, we're going to have to extend the amount of time that we spend on things that matter, stop taking things personally in here, bringing our own personal vendettas to the table, and if we don't stop with these plots too and these cowardly actions, we have not seen nothing in the city of Mobile. Thank you for yielding the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Mr. Reynolds?
Yes, sir. If the council will indulge me the opportunity, I'd like to introduce Tina Peru with the Southwest Mobile County Chamber of Commerce, along with all the participants of the TALL program. I believe the schools that are represented. I'm going to take a shot at this. We've got Theodore High School. We've got Davidson High School. We've got McGill-Tulin. We've got UMS. We've got Faith Academy, and we've got Cottage Hill Christian. How'd I do? Anybody? Okay. And if the council will indulge me further, I'd like for Tina to come to the mic and just tell us a little bit about the TALL program, just a minute or so, and then maybe we can give a round of applause for these participants in the TALL program.
Thank you. Yes, each student goes before a panel of judges, and they are selected by their volunteerism and their dedication to the community in the city, but also their leadership in their school. So we have 11 students with us this year, and it is Tillman's Corner Area Learning Leadership. sponsored by the Southwest Mobile County Chamber of Commerce. This is our 10th year, and we're excited to be able to award these students a $1,500 scholarship upon completion. And they go around the city for 9 months touring with different businesses, local individuals, with the mayor and the council, and it's an honor to be here today. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Tina.
Before we go further, I did read out the statements of rules, and pretty much if you want to address the council, you have to, especially on a non-agenda item, you have to sign up 2:00 p.m. We try to keep the rules because we've been for one person, we have to be in for another person. But what I'm getting at is that I appreciate Ms. Master coming down asking about prayer and willing to give them the prayer. But I'm going to ask this council towards the end of this meeting that, let's go ahead and pray for the Tyree family and also the city of Memphis. And not only the city of Memphis, the city of Mobile. And I know that we have several pastors in here, Pastor Lou, Pastor Hall, Bishop Ritchie, and others in here, Davis and others. Y'all can just come down here after the council give their announcement and just say a word of prayer, okay? Madam Clerk.
Timothy Hollis regarding Resolution 88006. I'm sorry, Ordinance 006.
Timothy Hollis, 1924 Seal Street. Good morning, council. Good morning, administration. Just looking at today's agenda, something strikes my attention, 88-006, which is an ordinance approving a land exchange and authorizing the execution of a land exchange agreement between Board of School Commissioners of Mobile County and the City of Mobile. My questions are, now I've looked at it. I've seen the resolution. I've seen the actual memo on it. But we have citizens in the city that are not as tech savvy as I or many of us in this building. We also have citizens that may not see this actual meeting until Thursday when it airs on TV. So my deal is I want to know, on behalf of the community of all 7 districts, what land parcel is being considered? When will it take place if it's approved? How does the city of Mobile benefit? What is intended to be in place by the Board of Commissioners from the school board at this said property? And that's about it. Could anyone answer any of those questions without getting personally in their feelings?
There's no problem. Anything else you want to answer before I ask someone to ask? Okay. Mr. Woods, could you, or Chief Barber, could you?
Yeah, so if he could submit those questions in writing, we can respond.
Could you just give something just short?
Not based on the questions he just asked. Now, all of that information is actually printed and out, but if he wants to submit those to the administration in writing, we'll respond to him. So he can give them to people, but it's actually all out there. But submitting them in writing is the form that we choose to respond in, other than what we've already put out there, because all of that information is actually in the packet.
Mr. President.
Mr. Reynolds and Mr. Carroll.
Sure. To avoid a long, drawn-out discussion on this, there's going to be several opportunities for public input on this one. As we discussed in pre-council meeting, there's a rezoning that has to take place for this, and there'll be it'll follow the normal channels of rezoning, which will include a public hearing, so that all the information will be able to be reviewed, and there'll be ample time. I think notice is probably 30 days on a rezoning request. So for this particular issue, I think there'll be ample time for the public to get all the information that they want.
Mr. Carroll.
I believe a lot of this is public information. Just if you would follow what's tracking at the corner of Beauregard and Water Street and the school property there and the old press register building, you'll be up to date. So it's simple transactions to make sure that we keep jobs within the city, renovate a building, add a create 45 new jobs and add a little additional building there. So it's nothing major to it. Just send an email request. It's a lot to talk about in about 3 minutes. So.
Mr. President.
You done, Mr. Carroll?
Yes, Mr. President. I'll be done unless I need to respond.
Mr. Reynolds?
Yeah, I failed to mention that also discussed in pre-council, which is going to further provide additional opportunities. We're not actually going to, when this item comes up next week, it's our intention to hold this over to a date certain until after the rezoning and the public input has happened.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for the clarity.
Madam Clerk?
Ordinance is held over. 64004, rezone property located at 1710 Dolphin Island Parkway from R1 and B2 to B2.
So moved.
Second.
Been properly moved and second. Any discussion?
Yeah, Mr. President.
Mr. Jones?
Yeah, this is okay as stated. We'd had some discussion with the address in pre-council, this property.
We haven't got to that one yet, Mr. Jones.
Oh, we just did the one. Okay,
Yes,
sorry.
yes, sir. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Item passes.
64005, rezone property located at 6712 Old Dobbin Drive North from R1, R2, and B1 to R1.
So move.
Second.
Been properly moved and second. Any discussion, Mr. Jones?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this is good as written. So they did tag that last property in the neighborhood that's connected to the development. This is actually the Milk House Creek development. We have had community meetings with this, and there's no issues.
Yeah. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Item passes.
Consent resolutions held over. 401037, declare the structure at 2010 Tucker Street a public nuisance and order it demolished.
Motion to table.
Second.
Been properly moved and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Items tabled.
401065 and 1066 are declaring the structures at 59 Alexander Street and 1160 Congress Street public nuisances and ordering them demolished and secured.
Wait a minute, please.
I need to take them separate?
Yes.
Okay. 401065, declare the structure at 59 Alexander Street a public nuisance and order it demolished.
Salute.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Item pass.
401066, declare the structure at 1160 Congress Street a public nuisance and order it demolished and secured.
Motion to stabilize and secure. So moved.
Second. In the discussion.
Yeah, Mr.
Carroll.
President, motion to mobilize and, stabilize and secure as suggested by the nuisance abatement department.
Any other discussion?
Mr. President,
Mr. Reynolds?
is this an amendment that needs to be offered up for this?
Or are we just changing the wording?
The wording needs to be changed because it calls for the demolition. The request was to stabilize and secure. That means to demolish the small portion on the back and secure the rest of it. So it needs to be changed there.
So are we amending the resolution?
Yes, sir, we are. Motion to amend by offering the wording, stabilize and secure.
Second.
Okay. Moved and second to amend. Any other discussion on that? All in favor to amend?
Aye.
All opposed? Going back to original motion. In the discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Item pass.
Resolutions held over. 08083, approved purchase order to Vulcan Construction Materials for limestone. 08084, approved purchase order to AutoNation Ford for utility body trucks. 08085, approved purchase order to Stivers Ford Lincoln for Expedition. 08086, approved purchase order to Protect Video for annual renewal of Eagle Eye camera software support and ALPR camera licenses. 08087, approved purchase orders for fuel for various city locations. 08088, approved purchase order to Mighty Light for dance floor kits for the convention center. And 08089, approved purchase order to Mighty Light for chairs for the convention center. 08090, approved purchase order to K&K Systems for solar power, radar, feedback, speed limit signs. 08091, approved purchase order to T.S. Wall & Sons for flooring for fire training center. 21093, authorized contract with Goodwin Mills Kaywood for the design and construction administration of a public safety training center. 21094, authorized contract with Tyndall Construction for line set repairs at the Sanger Theater.
So moved.
Second.
Been properly moved and second in discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Item pass.
Ordinances being introduced, 88006.
These ordinances will be laid over for 1 week per council rules.
Consent resolutions being introduced, 03096 through 60129.
Move to waive the rules for immediate consideration of these resolutions as read.
Been properly moved and second in discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Madam Clerk.
03096 and 097 are reappointing Sandra Wiley to the Mobile Library Board and John Pritchard to the Mobile Civic Center Advisory Board. 40, 098, and 099 are declaring the structures at 1056 Etta Avenue and 1408 Linwood Drive public nuisances and ordering them demolished. 58100, assess cost for removal of weeds, Weedling Group 1631. 60101, approve award of special bonus to the Administrative Services Employee of the Month. 102, 103, 104, 105 are determining appropriations to Trinity Gardens Community Civic Club, Big Brothers, Big Sisters of South Alabama, Inc., and Regency Park Homeowners Association, Providence Foundation Festival of Flowers, serve a public purpose, and approving payment. 46126, correct the spelling of Winbush Street. 37127, recommend approval to the ABC Board for issuance of a lounge retail liquor Class 1 license to the Friendship House Corporation on North Broad Street. 03128, concur in the reappointment of Michael Holland and appointment of Patrick Murphy to the Infirmary Special Care Facilities Financing Authority of Mobile Board. 6129, determine an appropriation to U.J. Robinson Memorial Center, Inc., serves a public purpose and approve payment.
So moved.
Second.
Been properly moved and second in discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Item passes.
Resolutions being introduced, 01106 through 08130.
Per council rules, these resolutions will lay over for 1 week.
Call for public hearings, 41125, call for public hearing to rezone property located at 1459 Mont Lamar Court from B2 and B3 to B3, scheduled March 7th.
So moved.
Second and in discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Public hearings called.
Announcements.
District 4, Councilman Reynolds.
No announcements.
District 1, Councilman Penn.
Thank you, Mr. Penn. This past week, I had an opportunity to.
I'm Mr. Small.
What?
You said thank you, Mr. Penn.
I said, oh, that's what I said. Well, been a long day. Thank you, Mr. President. I attended the Project Homeless Connect hosted by Housing First. This was an amazing event. I was just blown away with all the services that they provided. They had legal assistance, they had health, they had dental, state issues, photo IDs. They benefit applications assistance, employment assistance, veteran assistance, clothing. They was giving haircuts. They provided free transportation, food. It just was an amazing event. And what I realized is that we are stronger together if we can come together and support organizations, even like Mr. Hill stated earlier today, that we have to come together to figure these problems out. A lot of times we know how to, we can't arrest ourselves out of certain situations, but we could prevent. And with Housing First, they did an amazing job with this event. And I believe that we have to figure out how to support organizations like this more. But I had an amazing time. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Penn. District 6, Councilman Jones. District 2, Councilman Carroll.
Yes, Mr. President. First, let me say that I have every faith and support that we will be extremely safe as we start the Mardi Gras season this Friday. I am 100% confident in our law enforcement department and the officers that work for the city of Mobile. And I'm very confident in our citizens from our city that we will have a safe and friendly, family-friendly Mardi Gras. Look forward to it. I would suggest that we all stay safe and keep our eyes out around us also at the same time. This coming next month, I want to say about midway through the month, we will start our district meetings. In those district meetings, we will concentrate on annexation, what it is for us, what does it look like, how we're going to go about it, the process. There's been a lot of questions on how the process works, when it starts, especially coming from some parts of our neighborhoods. So look forward to getting that started and moving forward. I do have one question for the administration, though, and I'll ask that here after so I can get an answer to it. It's about a ground lease request that I still haven't seen a response to or know which direction we're going in with it. So I can have that information to respond to citizens in District 2 at the same time. Other than that, Mr. President, I have no announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. District 5, Councilman Davis.
Thank you, Mr. President. 1 week from today, February 7th, at 6:00 p.m. at E.R. Dixon Elementary School, which is at the corner of Bitten Spur Road and University Boulevard, we'll have a meeting. This meeting is primarily designed for the neighborhoods, people who live in the neighborhoods that abut South McGregor Avenue from Dolphin Street down to Airport Boulevard. That section of road will be closed to all through traffic sometime in the next 60 days or so. And this meeting is to really discuss traffic management during the period of time when that section of the road will be closed, which will be 2 years or so. The project, again, will proceed in various phases, but that section will be closed throughout the entire project. That, again, is at 6:00 p.m. a week from today, February 7th, E.R. Dixon, corner of Bitten Spur and University. As I said, it's primarily for the people who live in the neighborhoods abutting and around that section of road, but it's a public meeting. Anyone who wants to can attend. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Day. District 7, Vice President Gregory.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank Mark Vasello and Jeff Dees in Public Works, and of course, Pastor Sylvester Trotter and the folks at First Jerusalem Church on First Street over in Mobile Terrace for coming to and participating in a meeting that we held with residents there to talk about trash issues. Recently, there had been some notice of violations issued, and residents had questions about those. They also have some issues with lack of right-of-way, vacant lots that get trash on them, and continued illegal dumping. So we spoke a lot about that. But in the meantime, the question, of course, is what are we going to do about this? How are we going to try to resolve all of this? So I've been speaking with several members of the administration about how to come in and do more to try to relieve some of these issues. And I just want to thank David Doggenbaugh, Jamie Roberts, Casey Calloway, and so many others for working on this and trying to resolve these issues that we are having out in Mobile Terrace. Also, McGregor traffic, the issues in those neighborhoods due to the closure of McGregor Avenue seems to be better. So thank you, everyone. Thank you to all the residents and motorists who normally use McGregor. Thank you for your patience. I do want to make sure that as the work finishes in one phase before we start a second phase, that I am updated on whatever planned closings, changes, whatever is coming up. I just need to make sure that I know what's going on, because right now things do seem to be settled down quite a bit, and I would hate to see things start escalating again with any changes, certainly without my knowledge. And last but not least, welcome to all the folks who are in town for the Senior Bowl, the coaches, the scouts, the players, and of course all the fans. Look forward to a fantastic week and weekend with the Senior Bowl. Thanks, Mr. President.
Thank you, Vice President Gregory, and to the citizens of District 3, greetings. On last Friday, I had an opportunity to travel up to Atmore with several seniors from the DIP Sales Center, and also with Representative Barbara Drummond. She was awarded with the RC&D Council Leadership Award, and the reason that is that they gave her an award because she had spearheaded a grant for the seniors at the DIP Sales Center for the exercise equipment there. And pretty much they had awarded her on last Friday because of her leadership that she had rendered down at the sales center. And pretty much it was a great success. And again, when we thank all the seniors for coming up to help to honor Representative Barbara Drummond from Mobile. And I'd like to also thank RSC&D for their involvement into the senior center, looking to work with them more in the future. Also, on tomorrow evening, I will be hosting a meeting at my office on Broad Street, 950 South Broad Street, and dealing with big brothers and big sisters. They need some help. They need some mentors. So I'm calling several people throughout the community to meet me tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock p.m. at 950 South Broad Street in my family center. And pretty much we're going to have a meeting. And again, we have some representatives from Big Brothers and Big Sisters to come out, again, to be more as be involved with our younger people. Our younger people, a lot of them need some attention and need some loving. And pretty much if we don't start doing that, you know, we probably see more bad things happening in the future. So we're trying to prevent that. Again, that would be held at my office at 950 South Broad Street at 6 o'clock p.m. And don't like to do anything without the will of this council. And I asked earlier in the meeting that if we could, you know, pray for the city of Memphis and also the Tyrese family, and also for the city of Mobile for our upcoming Mardi Gras and Senior Bowl experience that we got coming up. And anyone having objections from this council? I'm going to ask the several ministers to come down and they can really close out in a word of prayer on this. I'm going to ask everyone to please stand.
To the one God that we know, to the one God that we love, to the one God that we honor, to the one God that has created us equal to you, God, we give thanks. However, in times such as these, we need your counsel. We need your hedge of protection around us. We need your understanding, your comfort, and your peace. We saw with our own eyes the horrific and despicable actions of those who forgot their call to duty, to protect and serve. We speak strength to the family of Tyree Nichols, and we speak peace to the city of Memphis. But God, we also speak recognition and warning to the other municipalities across this country that all of our citizens deserve to be treated as human beings. We pray that here in the city of Mobile, that you will allow us to continue to love one another and respect one another, regardless of our rank or race. We speak your covering over our city during this Mardi Gras season, but not just during Mardi Gras, but every day of every week, of every month, of every year that we are in existence. Help us to always remember that you see each of us as individuals, but you see each of us equally. And if we learn to take your vision as we deal with one another, this world would be a better place. In the name of the one God that still is able, in the name of the one God that is still capable, in the name of the one God who has provided all of our needs, we speak it done. Amen.
I just would add, we thank you, Lord. We give you praise for Mobile, Alabama. We thank you for Mobile, God. We thank you for your protection. Thank you for what you've done already. And we trust that you will continue. We believe you, God, that you will continue your protection over our city. Lord, we see what we've gone through in the hurricanes and different calamities that have happened in our nation. But yet you've protected us. And we say thank you. Thank you, Lord. And we give you praise for that. Amen. 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 Bless you. Bless you.
Look at a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Properly moving second in discussion. All in favor? All opposed?